all of a sudden we hear gunshots, multiple gunshots. And so everybody's ducking and covering. I remember I called my husband on the phone, and I was like, I think I'm in the middle of the shooting.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Shoot the Shit, a podcast that tells the unfiltered tales of filmmakers' craziest on-set and production experiences.
Because every shit situation on set makes for a great story after. I'm Kristen, a director and editor.
And I'm Taylor, also a director and editor. Today, our guest is Robin Vada Song, a director, actor, and directing coach. Robin, welcome to the show.
Hi. It's funny, you never really get to tell these stories except when you're like, having a beer with fellow filmmakers. So this is an interesting forum.
Well,
yeah,
we thought
it was a fun opportunity to share some of these behind the scenes, because some crazy stuff definitely goes down.
So do you want to just give us like an overview of your experience in the film industry so far?
Sure. So I started off my career in the corporate world doing video production and online communications for nonprofits. And then about 15 years ago, I transitioned to freelance. And I just spent a lot of time behind the camera as a director, as a producer, as an AD. You wear a lot of hats. And then as an actor as well in front of the camera. And what I noticed in all these years of being both behind the camera and in front of the camera is it's really common that a director doesn't speak the language of actors, and you see them a lot struggling with getting a good performance out of an actor. And that includes narrative things, documentaries where you're working with, someone just trying to get them to act natural in front of a camera, and commercials even. Like, I've seen so many commercials waste time and money, go into overtime because the director doesn't speak the language of actors and can't get the performance they want in any sort of timely manner. So what I started doing about, half a year ago is sharing my tips for directing actors on Instagram. And it was just like short little, 1 or 2 minute tips. And the response was just mind-boggling. Like, I thought that I would start posting these things and, build slowly over time. But it was kind of just this tidal wave all of a sudden of people going, oh my God, I need this information. And so I kind of found myself on this new track of being a directing coach, and I absolutely love it.
And that's exactly how we found you. So I love your content. I think it's invaluable, especially as someone who is no longer in film school, and I don't have someone to kind of give me that advice to talk to actors. And I'm sure plenty of other people who didn't go to film school or trying to educate themselves would also find that information so empowering. So thank you for that.
And most film schools don't really cover it in depth either. No. So I've had a lot of people reach out that are currently in film school, or they say, I never had this in film school. And so, it's just kind of this missing piece. I think a lot of people, either through film school or through on-set experience, get to know how to work with the technical side of things. But then there's nowhere to learn how to work with actors, the human side of things.
Very true. Very true. Yeah. Well, jumping in, I'm so curious to hear your personal experience, because you have, you have experience as a director, as an actor, and, the combination of the two. We have not talked to a lot of actors on this podcast. So I'm always curious to know, what your experience is going to be. But we have a first story to begin with the title Almost Like Praying, which I believe is the name of a project that you worked on.
Yeah. So this story, I guess as I get to the end of it, you'll see how it is appropriate to right now, because right now I'm getting over a cold. So apologies if my voice is gravelly. But so it's 2017, October 2017, actually, when Hurricane Maria hit Puerto Rico. And Lin-Manuel Miranda immediately released this single called Almost Like Praying, so that all of the proceeds from that would go to hurricane relief. And my best friend, right at the time, she was working as a choreographer and a dance teacher. And she called me up because she was like, I cannot get this song out of my head and I need to choreograph a dance to it. And I wonder if maybe you could film it. We could make like a mini unofficial music video and we could use it for like additional fundraising for hurricane relief. We could, post it online and make it a whole fundraiser thing. And so I just said yes, not really knowing what I was getting into. But it's 2017. So I think it sounds a little weird now to be like, I'm going to do a whole production around, choreographing a dance, because now it's more common, like on TikTok, to just video yourself dancing. But back in 2017, which seems like a lifetime ago, that if you were going to film a dance, you were going to do a music video. You're going to do like a whole big thing. Mm-hmm. It wasn't just going to be you dancing on your phone. So when she called me up, she was like, let's do this. And I was like, okay, we'll figure it out. So the next day I got her and my friend and frequent collaborator, Sarah Weldon, into a room. And I was like, okay, Sarah's a DP. And I was like, okay, let's figure out what we can do for, really cheap, really fast. We need a really fast turnaround on this because, my previous experience prior to going freelance was working for nonprofits. I actually worked for the Red Cross for a long time in disaster relief communications. So I was really aware that we had a really short window of time for people's attention to still be on it, for this to be front page news and people to be wanting to give to hurricane relief. So I was like, if we're going to do this as a fundraiser, it needs to happen immediately. So we thought of this idea for just a really simple shoot for people dancing, intercutting it with some footage from Puerto Rico, and using that as a fundraiser. So what we had to do from that point was, everything. So we had about 3 days to get this shot and edited and released out into the world. So I think I released it into the world probably 5 days after that because I had to edit it. But 3 days till the shoot. So I had to get a location and a crew and gear and everything for free because this is a fundraiser. So I'm not going to spend any money because I want this money to go to hurricane relief. So I just, started making phone calls, calling in a bunch of favors, trying to get what I could. And so I ended up finding a studio and, some gear and people to come be a part of this. So while I was making those phone calls and calling in those favors during the day, every night we were recruiting dancers. So my best friend, Rebecca, who's the choreographer, she and I would go out to the salsa clubs at night and we would just dance, and we would recruit people who were good dancers. So if we saw somebody dancing or we danced with someone who was good, we would give them this little flyer with the information and say, contact us. We're doing a music video in 3 days. And so by the end of that 3 days, between our, salsa outings and Rebecca's dance classes that she teaches, we were able to get 14 dancers, which was great. 14 people who could actually like salsa and merengue, and because that was kind of the Latin dance style that it was based on. And so we had our dancers. I had contacted a couple of people, filmmakers in Puerto Rico, who cooperated with me to get footage before and after of the hurricane and like people dancing and stuff like that. So all of this came together in like 3 days. And so it's just been this like slapdash mad run towards production. And then the day that we were shooting, I think it was a Saturday or something, the day of the shoot, I woke up and I felt like a ton of bricks had hit me. I was so sick. Body aches, fever, chills. It was just awful. But I was like, I got to do this. The show must go on. And this was a pre-COVID world, so I might have made a different decision these days. But at the time, I was like, I'm not sneezing, I'm not snotty, I'm not coughing, I'm not puking. Like, nothing I'm doing is like spreading germs. So I'm just going to go to set and pretend I'm not sick. And so...
Oh my God.
Because I'm directing this thing, If I'd been in any other position, I could have been like, all right, somebody else take my job. But so I went to set and I told Rebecca, my choreographer, and Sarah, my cinematographer, so they knew what was going on. Like, I was not feeling good and I was going to have to reserve my energy. And so they got me like this tall stool that I could kind of semi sit on. So it looked a little bit like I was standing when I was kind of half sitting. And it was kind of like, you know, marathon runners when, you know, they reserve all of their energy for like the big sprint at the very end at the finish line.
Yeah.
That was me reserving my energy by sitting on this chair and like knowing that I would need to stand at a certain point, because I'm going to need to like stand and tell my dancers what to do. And so I'm just sitting there and just reserving all my energy for standing up. And normally, so as a directing coach, I really emphasize to directors, don't just shout your notes from the director's chair. You know, go up and talk to your actors, talk to your talent. And in this case, I didn't want to, you know, be in hugely close proximity to people because I knew I was sick, and I didn't have a lot of energy to actually get up off of that stool. And so I deputized my choreographer to go and like give notes, which was great because she was already working with the choreography with them. And so I did my best to actually reserve my energy sitting there. But of course, you're wrapped up in things. You're moving around. You're not, I don't know, if you're me anyway, you're not going to sit the whole time. You're going to be moving around just because that's my nature. So I don't know. I think the act of directing is so engaging and you're in it that, you know, you're not thinking about anything else. So I could kind of push to the back of my mind the fact that I felt awful. And, you know, because you're thinking about it, you've got decisions to make in every moment. You're thinking about the blocking, the lighting, the camera angle, you know, the performance. And so the momentum of that, I think, carries you through.
Wow.
And that's why I didn't realize until I sat down. Like when we wrapped, the moment we wrapped, I went and sat down in this like big, comfy, easy chair that was in the studio. And I actually started convulsing. Like I just started like seizure-like shaking.
Oh my God.
And it was like this tidal wave of pain hit me. Like I had been just pushing all the pain out of my mind for the past 12 hours.
Yeah.
And it just hit me like a ton of bricks all of a sudden. And I couldn't stop shaking. And I couldn't move. I couldn't do anything else. So at that point, you know, the rest of the crew was like, hey, we're going to wrap. You go home. And so my partner at the time took me home, but he had to support my weight as I was walking because I couldn't actually walk. And it took me about an hour and a half to stop convulsing. And I was in such pain that I remember saying something like, I just can't do this anymore. Like I've never experienced that amount of pain coming at me at once, because it really was like I just saved up all the pain all day long. And then the moment I stopped, that's when it hit. So that was just bonkers. And so I, of course, like, you know, went to sleep and slept for 12 hours. And then I had to edit the thing the next day.
Oh my
because
God.
So I was sitting in bed just dying and editing this thing and trying to get through it. And I would send the edit over to my DP, and thank goodness she is not only wonderful and kind, but also does not let me half-ass anything. So I remember sending her an edit where I was like, this is good enough. I can't, it's good. Yeah. And then she's like, no, you need to color correct these things. I was like, I don't wanna. I'm dying still. But she's like, you need to. I was like, okay. And so I did, and we got it out in the next like 48 hours. And then we ended up raising a few $1,000s for hurricane relief. So it was worth it. But oh my God.
Wow.
I can't believe you still edited it the next day. That's wild.
Oh yeah,
Like,
I would have shoved that onto someone else so quickly.
I don't even think I had the brain power to like delegate it. You know what I mean? I was like, I have the footage. I don't know how I get this footage. I just can't. I have it. I'll work with it.
Mm-hmm. Oh my goodness.
That's so wild. Like the fact that you got through the whole directing day.
Well, the wild thing was, I think, how I didn't feel it at a certain point. How I was like, I'm fine. You know, just because you've decided you're fine, and I completely was not fine.
I mean,
when
there's
my body
just so
let me
much
know.
Yeah, there's just so much that's going on when you're on set and you're directing. You're spinning so many plates that it's almost like you have an out of body experience at times where you're just like,
Yeah.
you're not in your body. You are literally everywhere on set. You're
Absolutely.
you're not yourself. So
Yeah, and
I can totally see where you're just like not understanding that your body is like, hey, I'm over here. Please feed me water and lay down.
yeah, and I think we've actually all been through that experience in different ways. Maybe not, having the flu on set, but like all the time we're working these 12, 16-hour days, and you'll get to the end of the day and you'll be like, I didn't drink any water. Oh, and your body will just be like dying of thirst. Or, you've had those days where you just realize, oh my God, my feet are actually hurting so bad that I can't stand anymore. But somehow I did it all day long just because I was pushing through on pure momentum.
Yeah. Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
it happens all the time.
All
And I don't know,
the time.
I feel like filmmakers are a little bit like masochists because we kind of like love that. Like we're like, oh, like I love an incredibly busy day, and then we love talking about it, and then we create podcasts like this so we can talk about it.
Yeah, it's weird because I have a sister who like runs Ironman, ultra marathon, all kinds of that stuff that I'm
wow.
like, oh, I could never do that. I'm always like, I would never run an Ironman. And then I realize, oh, that's what I do for work. I do this like endurance sport.
Yeah.
No kidding.
Yeah, absolutely. I've dealt with migraines off and on, and I definitely have had a lot of sets where I am powering through and I don't even realize I have a migraine until it wraps. And then you're
Yeah.
like, oh, I'm actually miserable, but you just
Yeah.
doesn't even register because you're so in it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly
Yeah.
the thing.
Yeah. That's wild.
Totally. Not.
Well, I'm glad you made it through that one. You gotta send us that video. I'd love to see it.
It's funny because I love the video, but I'm also like, oh, what I could have done if I had, a real production schedule for it, like more than 3 days to prep.
Yeah. And your full energy and capacity. Yeah. Hey, that's still, you got to be proud of that. You got it done. That's
To do anything in that state. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'd love to hear a little bit more about, you had a story about some SUV stunts in the ocean. Can you take us to that one?
So this is a shorter story. This is where I was working in production on a commercial. And I will not name the car brand, but it was a luxury car brand. And we were shooting this commercial for this luxury SUV that costs as much as some houses. And we're out on the coast, on the Oregon coast. And so we had a stunt driver who was driving this big luxury SUV, doing these, drifting turns through the water, just as the water's lapping the shore, and you splash the water up, which sounds kind of bonkers, but it's actually pretty standard for car commercials. I'm sure you've seen that shot in car commercials before. So everything was going well, except that somebody had forgotten to put the protector shield on the engine that protects the salt water from coming up and ruining the engine. And so after a couple shots, the car just stalled out and it wouldn't work anymore. And so they were like, oh my God, what do we do? And finally, they decided that we needed to get a different car to shoot with. And so basically we had to get any car of any brand that was a similar-ish size, but slightly, just any SUV that was about the same shape and about the same size, but just small enough that they could mask, with CG mask over the real car. And so we ended up getting an SUV that was completely different brand, and driving it out and, making sure it was protected from the salt water, and driving it out. And the stunt driver did the shots, the turns with that car. So we have this car that is absolutely not the car, absolutely not the right brand, doing these real stunts in the real ocean. But in the end, they're just going to CG the actual car over it. So it was
wonderful.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit movie magic and a little bit face palm, what the heck are we doing? Yeah, that's the commercial world. Even if you're working on a big commercial with a big budget for a big car brand, things still go wrong and you still have to scramble to figure it out.
There's so
I'm
many
surprised
details.
they didn't have a backup car of the same brand like around. Just
You
in
know,
case.
that would have been an idea. I don't know if it was because it was like a really expensive car that we can't get to of, or whether it was just new enough that there was only one. I don't remember.
Yeah.
There was so much going on that shoot that's only, only one of the crazy things that happened on that shoot. And just, I think for me, the amount of stress that goes into absolutely any production, even if you think you've got it all dialed in and you've done your planning, something is going to go wrong. Probably multiple somethings are going to go wrong. And I think I got to a certain point where it was like, if I'm not getting creative satisfaction out of this project and it's not something I care about, then I'm going to get real burnt out on it. And so I used to do a lot of commercial producing, and I got to the point where I just had to stop producing in general because it's so much stress. And as a producer, you get little to no creative satisfaction. And if you're doing commercials, which is where a lot of the big money is, you're not getting any like soul satisfaction out of that either. And so I just had to stop. I was like, I'm not producing, and I'm especially not producing commercials anymore. The only thing I might consider producing is my own stuff or, a passion project for a friend. So
No, that makes sense.
Yeah, I think that car commercial might have been where I actually burnt out and said, like, I'm done. I can't anymore. Yeah.
I feel like the more and more I get into this industry, it just reveals itself how much of it is held together by like duct tape and wishes,
It completely is.
Like,
we MacGyver every project.
Yeah, like you could think like, oh my gosh, this has so much money and there's like name talent attached. There's still so much going wrong under the hood. And there's a lot of, it's exactly that. And there's so many details that like have to be like, they have to have people's attention, like, shielding the engine of this freaking car. One would think that's like, it's part of someone's protocol, right? But it's still like these things go unseen, undone, and then you're out how many hours, if not days, on something like that. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's crazy.
And part of it is the nature of this beast is every project is different, and so you're always going to be kind of like dealing with different variables that could go wrong. But also you're usually pulling together a new crew every time, because you're, especially on short projects like commercials, you're always pulling together a new crew. Oftentimes you're trying to pull people you've worked with before or people who've worked on similar projects before, but sometimes that's not possible. Or, and so there's just going to be like, there's going to be gaps in the communication. There's going to be things that one person thinks that somebody else was taking care of, but they're not, who knows? Yeah.
It's always a shit show. That's why we call it shoot the shit. Sometimes it's fun. Sometimes you end up yanking your hair out about it, but we're all in it.
But then you all trauma bond over it. And so
we do trauma bond. It's so true. It's so true. And I totally get what you're saying about like not feeling creatively fulfilled. And it's good that you like recognized that and you were able to like step away from it and kind of recalibrate and figure out what else you wanted to do that was going to be more nutritious for you.
Nutritious. I like that. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sure I heard like some influencer use that at one point, and now it's part of my, it's part of, anyway, but, segueing into, commercial acting, it sounds like you were in a no director kind of situation, and I'm curious to know how that went for you.
You know what? I will say, I'm going to tell you this one story, but this is not the only time I've been in a no director situation on a commercial. Because so it's not terribly uncommon for people to just think, oh, this is a commercial. It's not high drama. We don't need a actor's director for this. We probably don't even need a director. We'll just have, I don't know, a creative producer, or we'll have the DP, direct it, because it's mainly about the visuals. It's not about the acting. And that's the mindset that they go into with a commercial. And that is a huge mistake, because if you don't have a director there who can speak the language of actors, you are going to end up wasting so much time, because there is an art to knowing your vision, communicating that to the actor, and giving a playable note so the actor knows specifically what you want. Because you might go in assuming that you know what the actor wants, or assuming the actor knows what you want. And, you might think, oh, it's obvious from what's on the page, of course. But there are 1,000 different ways to interpret what's on the page. And in order to be able to effectively communicate, this is specifically what we're going for to an actor, you have to have somebody who speaks an actor's language, which is a director. Hopefully a director with experience working with actors. And so in this specific instance, we were shooting on a soundstage. It was, completely all white psych wall. They were basically going to CG the entire everything in there. And so we were acting with nothing but a handful of props, not even a handful of props, maybe 3 props. And, it was me and this young kid, great kid. He didn't have.
Were you an actor? Or what was your?
Oh yeah, I was an actor on this one. Sorry, yeah. So on this one, I was an actor, and so it was me on camera. It was me and this kid, who was an awesome kid, good actor. Didn't have a whole lot of experience. No kid has a whole lot of experience acting, because they don't have a whole lot of experience living. They're only a certain amount of years old. In general. So there's this kid actor, and he was supposed to be playing my son, and we're in this completely blank environment. So nothing to play off of or interact with, really. And I don't know if it was his first time. It was one of his first times on this kind of set. And they had no director. And it was just the DP/director and the AD kind of /director too. So they were both kind of trading off duties, talking to us, the actors. And I would say the DP, who was in name DP/director, would kind of give us more blocking notes-ish, but also some acting notes. And then the AD would also give us some acting notes. And it was, first of all, very confusing, because as an actor, you want to have one voice where things are coming from, so what's the final word on this.
Right, yeah.
And also, we had 6 client representatives on set. So we have 6 client and no director. And the client is sitting close enough that we, the actors, can hear them. So we know when they're dissatisfied with a take, and we know what they're saying about it. But we hear, I'll see the AD, who's kind of directing, walk over and get a note from the client, and then come back to us and try to translate it. So I here, as a director and directing coach, am observing this whole thing and going not my place to step in. So all I can do is be the actor in this situation and watch it happen. And so the AD, who's kind of directing, is going over and getting the notes from the 6 client representatives there, bringing them back to us. And what's happening in this moment is that I am, saying some lines directly to the camera, and then the kid is supposed to come over and get his bike helmet from me and say something like, "Hey, Mom, can I go ride my bike now?" or something like that. And so the kid is just nervous, because we're in this completely blank environment under hot studio lights, and, cameras on him, a million people right in front, all giving their opinions. And he's doing the kind of things that a nervous actor does, which is, taking the helmet from me at the wrong time, or forgetting to look at me when he gives his line, or these kind of things. And the pseudo director AD would come over and, try to give him a note, but these notes just weren't working. Every single thing he said to him was just making him more self-conscious. And so we did take after take after take after take, and we started, running behind time. The whole project started getting more and more tense, because you're seeing the client not satisfied with what they're seeing, the 2 pseudo directors not satisfied with what they're getting. we're starting to run behind time, and it's just, a snowball effect, because you see the tension start to build, and, the kid can feel that tension. I can feel that tension.
Yeah.
And it's just hard when that happens. And I have unfortunately seen that situation happen on more than one commercial, because people just don't value having a director in a commercial who can work with actors, because they, take it for granted. Oh, this is, very straightforward. It's fine. It doesn't require a whole lot of acting, which is just a wrong assumption, especially when you're dealing with kids, especially when you're dealing with a situation where you don't have anything to interact with on set. It's a really hard thing to be in an environment where you've got just this totally blank wall behind you and no real environment. And you're supposed to be pretending that I'm walking to school and there's a school bus there. You have to be able to hold a lot in your imagination at the same time as remembering your lines and paying attention to the other actor and all that stuff.
Wow. Do you feel like you understood what they wanted when you were getting opinions from all these different people, or was it kind of confusing even what they wanted from you?
I understood.
Yeah, but the kid was...
I think the kid was just a kid and he was trying to do it right. He was trying to, and this is the hardest thing, is when pressure can shut an actor down, and the pressure to get it right is one of those big pressures. And sometimes it comes from the actor themselves. If we put pressure on ourselves to do it right, then you're going to see like us start to force things, or, just not act natural. But a lot of times that pressure comes from outside, either, the director asking for something that, is not making sense to you, or that they're running behind on time and you're like, oh God, I got to get this right. And you just start to get that feeling of, you just can't relax and be natural when you feel that pressure. Right. And so, this kid just kept feeling more and more pressure piled onto him. And he was sitting there trying to just, act normal, act natural. And it's hard. Yeah.
That's brutal.
Yeah. And I think
how do you,
go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
No. I was gonna say part of the job of a commercial director is this really interesting job. Because if you're a director on, a TV or a movie or any sort of narrative thing, you've got your own vision, and all you have to do is translate your own vision to the actor, which is hard enough. But then when you're on a commercial, you have to translate your own vision to something playable for the actor, and you also have to go translate the client's vision into something playable for the actor, which is a lot more kind of like on the fly kind of skill of figuring out, okay, this isn't what I had in mind, but the client's got a new idea. How do I translate that and how do I figure out what they want, translate it into something that makes sense for us, and then translate it for the actor? Yeah. So
I've had to do a lot of that. I did a lot of, promo videos for businesses and nonprofits. And sometimes it's tough because what the client wants either doesn't really make sense, or you just know isn't going to work, but they're just so insistent and they don't have any experience with this, but they're like, this is what I want. So it can be really hard to walk that tightrope of keeping the client happy, but also getting things to look and, flow well. Yeah.
For sure. And that's the other job of the director, is kind of holding on to your vision and pushing back when client is gonna like interfere with that. And knowing when to push back and say like, either that's not possible or that doesn't fit the vision or whatever, because often it is, client doesn't have experience in movie making, and so they don't know. They're asking for something that may or may not be possible, that may or may not, work with the rest of what you're shooting. Yeah. So you got to communicate that and then turn around and communicate to an actor. So it's like being this intermediary that's hard.
I mean, just proving that point, I feel like we've all edited something. So when you're editing for a client, how often does it happen that you like do an edit and they're like, no, I don't like that. Do it this way. And then you do their edit and they're like, no, let's go back to the way you had it.
Oh
like
my God.
That just proves the point that they don't know what they're doing. You absolutely need a director on set to protect your actors, protect the vision, and like actually direct the frickin' commercial.
Yeah, you really have to protect the vision. And I like that word protect, because I think of the director in a way as a protector. I think they're protecting the vision of the project, and they're also protecting the actor's performance, by which I mean, like, a good actor who trusts their director, a good actor who trusts their director is going to take risks. And those risks may or may not pay off. There's a really fine line sometimes between a brilliant acting choice and one that just doesn't work. But if you want to get to those brilliant acting choices, you have to take risks. And you have to trust your director to be keeping an eye on your performance and, like, noticing when you've taken a risk that works and noticing when you've taken a risk that doesn't and redirecting you to, a choice that does. And you have to trust your director to have a strong enough vision and, a discerning enough eye that they will not let your bad choice into the edit. So if you take a risk and you end up looking dumb on camera, you have to trust that your director has a strong enough vision and they're going to protect that vision by not letting that choice into the final edit.
Oh yeah, I feel like that as an editor too. Sometimes you have to take risks in an edit and try something a little bit new or different, and you really have to trust that the director is going to be able to say, like, oh yeah, that's really working, or no, let's go in a different direction or tweak it this way. So I definitely feel that dynamic there as well.
Mm-hmm. And I will say, like, oftentimes I ask actors, what is an example of the worst directing you've ever gotten on set? And I get some bonkers stories of bad notes people have gotten. But the very most common feedback I get when I ask that question is they say the worst direction I've gotten is no direction at all. And that's so common. And if you have a director who's not giving notes to your actor, then how are they communicating the vision? And how does the actor know the boundaries of where they can push things or take risks? They don't. And yeah, it's all about protecting that vision.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, talking about protection, I think you had a story about gunshots that just kind of brings to mind safety and protection. I don't know if these are real guns or what we're working with here, but please do tell.
All right, this is another short story.
Okay.
So this was, I was down in Atlanta shooting a public service announcement for a nonprofit. So it was a good project. And we were shooting this scene that was, it was about human trafficking. So we were shooting at this very rundown, seedy hotel. And it was kind of this scene where a guy is leading a woman into the hotel room. So we're doing a good job shooting it, and everybody's very, very safe in that regard on set. But still, if you're doing a scene like that, you're at like a real location where the hotel really is this kind of rundown place. Like the vibe just kind of feels like, yeah. And so, everybody that's not needed for the shot is like standing back. And so I was standing right next to this car with an open door. And all of a sudden we hear gunshots, multiple gunshots. And so I duck down behind this car door and these gunshots just keep going off. And so everybody's ducking and covering. And I remember I called my husband on the phone and I was like, I think I'm in the middle of a shooting. I'm whispering to him on the phone so that, nobody can hear who I am. And I'm like, I love you. If this is the last time I talk to you, I'm hiding. I don't know what's happening. And so this goes on for a few minutes before, I don't know how, someone figured out there's a shooting range right behind the hotel.
Oh my God.
Stop it.
So
my God.
They're real live gunshots, so we weren't wrong. But yeah, there was a shooting range right behind the hotel, and
wow.
Yeah, but there's just that moment where you're like, it's so sad when you see, shootings on the news and you think, what would I do in that situation? Well, I know what I'd do in that situation. I would duck down and call my husband, apparently. Yeah. That's what I would do. But I asked my husband about that the other day. I'm like, remember when this happened, when I called you from like a live shooting? And he's like, no. I'm like, are you serious?
Oh
That had to be a scary call to get.
Well, he's like, I think because it ended up being fine. He's like, obviously, I would have remembered it if it had ended up being,
He just
you really getting
that
hurt.
anxiety out of his life. He's like, no, this didn't happen.
But I know part of it probably is he is also a filmmaker. And so he knows things get crazy on set. And there's probably been times when I've called him when I've been more actually upset than that.
Yeah.
So that was like low on the level of stress meter. I don't know.
He's just like, another shoot. Yeah.
Oh yeah, another
I have
shoot.
to
And then,
ask-
okay.
I have to ask, like, who was producing? Who like did the location scouting? Like, was there not a conversation about like? Because also just like base level, if you're shooting something near a place that is a gun range that is audible, like that's usually not a great place to record sound. So like, I feel like this would have been a conversation. I don't know.
Yeah, we were MOS for this. We weren't shooting sound, so that was that was fine.
Got it.
But we were working with a local locations scout who had not been extremely reliable with communication in general. So I'm not surprised that they didn't tell us that there was a shooting range right there. Yeah,
I've done
it was weird.
Shoots in the South, and it's a little dodgy sometimes.
Well, it's always weird when you're in a new city because, we don't normally work in Atlanta. We were down there for this shoot. And so, we don't know the neighborhoods. We don't know the places. I feel like in Portland, where I'm based, if somebody were to tell me that a shoot was taking place in a certain location, I'd be like, oh, I know what's near there. Or like, I know, what the vibe of that neighborhood is. But I don't know in Atlanta. So we were just showing up randomly to places going, okay, kind of blindly following.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, you discovered something that maybe you didn't want to.
Yeah. I mean, and the good thing is that ended up, well. We didn't actually get shot. So that was good.
Right.
Yeah, that had to be a pretty crazy moment of adrenaline, though, thinking that what
It
was actually
was.
going down was,
Yeah, I think that was another time. There's a common theme, I think, in all my stories that I end up shaking. So like, after I got the flu, I like had big shakes. After this, I was like, my hands are just like this for a while. Where you're coming down from that adrenaline, going like, what just happened?
Enjoying this episode? You can find the extended version via the link below.
While you're there, please give us a like. It really helps us out. Well, it's been wonderful talking to you. I'm so glad that we got to do this. But before we sign off, I just want to ask you if there's anything you want to plug, anything you want to let people know that you're working on, and where people can find you.
Yeah, so my website is talkingtoactors.com because it's all about learning the language of actors and learning how to talk to directors or actors so you can direct them better. And so go there. Right now, what you'll see is sign up for my email list, and that's where I send out exclusive directing tips just to that email list. And I also announce my workshops there first, so you always have the chance to sign up first if you are on my email list, and then I announce it publicly later. My last workshop sold out in 12 hours, so before I even had the chance to post it publicly, it was completely sold out, and now I have enough people on my wait list to be running 3 more. So that's all from just people on my email list. And so if you want the chance to actually take any of my workshops, I would recommend getting on that email list so you get the first dibs on signing up. So go to talkingtoactors.com. That's where I have my workshops, and soon I will have an online course. I'm in the middle of writing it right now, and then I got to film it.
Nice. Very nice. Yeah. Well, that's amazing. I am part of your email list. I will have to sign up on a wait list at some point very soon because I am eager to learn more and take the opportunity to actually, get some more directing tips. So that's great.
It's fun. Like right now, the workshops I'm doing are, I call them Director's Gym because we're doing this live Zoom workshops where basically I have 2 actors in the room with me, and then you as a director get to give them notes, and then you get coaching from me on those notes. And then we all, learn from each other's notes that we give as well. So I'm really excited about that format because there is no opportunity other than something like that. There's no opportunity to practice directing actors except when you're on the job, which is just bonkers. Like I can't think of any other job where the only experience you ever get is on the job. Like I often compare it to weightlifting. Like what if a professional weightlifter never went to the gym in between competitions? They would never get stronger. And yet that's what we do as directors. We think I'll just go and I'll direct actors when I get there, and that's the only practice you ever get. So I'm trying to create an opportunity for that practice.
No, that's wonderful. I mean, like, yeah, I kind of feel myself getting stuck in that, where it's like, I'll go through a project, learn what I've learned from it. And then it just like, whatever I've taken away from that project, like, you know, beyond the edit of it, I'm like, oh, I've learned so much. And then by the time I get to, you know, implement it into something else, it's like, wait, hold on. What did I learn again? Like, wait, hold on. Like, unless I'm, you know, doing it regularly, like it is a muscle. So
yeah, and
it's great that you have this format.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons that I kind of framed it as learning the language of actors, because just like a language, you have to keep using that language or you'll lose it, you know? Yeah, it kind of fades. Like I took 6 years of Spanish in high school and college, and I can speak it on a rudimentary level now, but I used to be semi-fluent back then. I'm not now because I don't use it all the time.
I'm with you. I've lost mine too. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it comes back if you like spend 2 weeks in Mexico and like are forced to do it, then it starts to come back. But yeah. So learn a language and keep speaking the language, I guess.
That's it for this episode of Shoot the Shit. And thank you all for joining us.
Bye.
Join us for the next shit show.
No Longer Network.